Namaskaram. Subhodayam. Swagatam. Day 4 CLEP-2 Spoken English series for webinar series for teachers. మీ అందరికీ స్వాగతం తెలియజేస్తూ మీతో ఉన్నది డాక్టర్ టి మొహమ్మద్ ఇస్మాయిల్. So this is a live interactive webinar streaming on SCERT AP official YouTube as well as Facebook channels. With us today, Professor Selvendra Jairaj Garu is with us. I welcome Selvendra Jairaj Garu to today's session. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
With us, Pokur Srinivas Garu also there from your digital education of SCERT. Good morning and welcome you, sir. So I request Pokur Srinivas Garu to introduce today's resource person to the viewers.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, Andhra Pradesh. Welcome, Professor Jairaj Garu. Professor Jairaj Garu from Department of Phonetics and Spoken English and Language Sciences, and he's from the IFLU University and had a PhD from the Central University of English and Foreign Language, Hyderabad, and did MPhil and PGDTE in MA, and he had written many articles related to lexical level writing in Telugu and philosophical study, and he wrote many books and also helped us in many of the material that we prepared for the improvement of language, and especially in English to the Andhra Pradesh. So we feel very proud to be here, sir, Jairaj Garu.
Thank you.
So we heartily welcome to this program. Sir, please start your session.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Thank
Yes,
you very
please.
much, sir. Thanks for introducing Professor Selvendra Jairaju. Today's topic is phonetics part 1. Thank you,
Hello.
sir. Please start your presentation.
Hello.
Yes,
I'm just
sir.
connecting my headphones.
Okay.
Just a minute. I welcome you all to this compendious presentation on phonetics, particularly for the teachers of Andhra Pradesh. And it's an honor for me to be with you all this morning here. I also thank all the organizers and especially the administrative officers who have been toiling behind the implementation of the English medium education in Andhra Pradesh. I take this opportunity and I really thank Pokur Srinivas Garu and Ismail Garu for such a warm introduction. And today I would like to draw your attention on phonetics, and in your schedule it is mentioned phonetics 1. It is mentioned as phonetics 1. So phonetics 1 is a very general term. So I would like to specify phonetics for our purpose this way: phonetics for language learning and teaching. Right. The objectives behind this presentation are to explore the need for phonetics in language teaching, to infer the scope of teaching phonetics in general, to offer an understanding of English and Telugu sound systems. So these are the three important objectives I've been reflecting upon while planning for this session. When we talk about language and language teaching in general, listening and speaking, as you're all exposed to, are primary tasks or activities. So in listening and speaking, when we say, many languages in the world do not have script, but all the languages have so we can't avoid speaking and spoken aspects of a language. Speaking aspects of a language. So when we speak, there is one important parameter we need to understand, which is very, very crucial, in fact, for defining languages. That is mutual intelligibility. When two or three people, or more than three people, more than two, when they communicate to each other, are they mutually intelligible? In fact, to define languages, this criteria is very, very essential. If you want to say a particular linguistic code is a language, you have to test that particular code against mutual intelligibility in a given community. If you take up a community there, if you see a linguistic code, and that code is mutually intelligible within the community, then linguistically, we define that linguistic language. So mutual intelligibility is one of the important aspects we need to understand here. When it comes to the English language, we know that English is no more an Englishman's property, it's a global property. And moreover, you go to a particular country where English is not an official language, or English is not the mother tongue. And if you go there, you will see a variety of English. If you go to Nigeria, you see a variety of English called Nigerian English. Recently, a journalist from Delhi called me up, and he was asking about certain features of English. The English, sorry. Sorry. The English is spoken. The English is spoken in India. So that is, what we have in India. And people are aware that we have Indian English or English, whatever we call it. Similarly, if you go to a particular country, any other country, you will see a variety of English. So when we have different varieties of English, and when these varieties are used in a global context, are they mutually intelligible? This is one of the important. If they are not mutually intelligible, maybe at a different level you can define them as English, but when it comes to functional aspects of language, I think there is some deficiency with the variety. So when we look at different varieties of English and the aspects of mutual intelligence, we can see a lot of intelligibility problems. For instance, if you look at when it comes to mutual intelligibility concept, according to our Indian tradition, in Paninian Siksha, Panini has clearly mentioned a constraint in his Siksha under Sloka 54, and the translation is here. If anybody reads the Veda without a show of hands and does not observe proper accents and places of articulation, Rik, Yajuz, and Saman burn him, and on death he attains rebirth as an inferior animal. Of course, there are certain religious beliefs presented here. If you disassociate the religious beliefs and look at the language as a linguist or as a language teacher, I could see a concern of Panini, that is mutual intelligibility or the intelligibility of the language, the places of articulation. That is very, very crucial. And when it comes to the sounds, he also says in verse 52, the vowel sounds must be, very, very clear. The vowels are very, very clear for clear speech and for understanding the speech. So, and he talks about consonants, he talks about vowels, he talks about intonation, he talks about the prominence. Dear friends, these are all spoken aspects of a particular language. So Panini came up with the Siksha in the context where Sanskrit was taught orally and it was spreading into different parts of the country. And in his contemporary times, there were 7 to 8 grammarians, Sanskrit grammarians, who used to teach Sanskrit. And Panini was one among them. Panini realized that, Sanskrit had been spreading to different parts of, and wherever it went, it used to assume a new variety of Sanskrit. And there was a lot of confusion with regard to intelligibility. That's where Panini decided to write Ashtadhyayi and Paninian Siksha to see to that there won't be any intelligibility issues when Sanskrit is spoken across the country. So the top priority while teaching a language, particularly speaking skills, the teachers need to focus on mutual intelligibility. That is an irreducible minimum while we teach listening and speaking. Sound distortion, Panini says further, a distortion of a sound brings about distortion in meaning. See, I'll give you some illustrations here. Sound distortion related issues. I was speaking to an Australian who was a British Council teacher working in Libya. We were working in the university. He was working in the language center. We went on a vacation. And when we got back to the work, I saw John and I was asking him, John, when did you come? He said, well, to die. Australians have this problem, A and I. Wherever they see A, day, they say die. Way, why. So he said, today, I came today, I came to die. I was jovially talking to him, to die here, you need not to travel all the way from your country. Dear friends, A and I, the sound distortion brings about change in the meaning. Day, die. Way, why. May, my. That was what Panini was talking about. The sound distortion brings about change in the meaning, or the distortion in the meaning. And for example, if you look at Indians, ooh and ooh, and particularly in some pockets of the country, they have a tendency to make long vowels short and short vowels long. When I was dining with an American along with a couple of Indian friends, you know, an American and a couple of Indian friends I was dining with. I was dining, and then the American was offering some food to other friends of other Indian friends, and he says, "Why didn't you take some more food?" And the Indian friend said, "Well, I'm full. I'm full." And then he was really shocked, and he was asking, "Where are the Indians fools at the dining table?" Dear friends, sound distortion brings about change in the meaning. And in some pockets of the country, there's a problem of v and wa, and they are pronounced as b. If you want to say very good, they say very good. Very good. And Arabs have the problem of p and b. Wherever they see p, they replace it with b, and that's how pray becomes bray for them. So one sound brings about the change in the meaning of the utterance. So dear friends, we need to understand sound distortion is one of the hindrances for promoting intelligibility intelligibility of spoken varieties across the human languages. No matter what language you speak, the sounds of that language are very, very crucial for bringing out the meaning. And the distortion of those sounds will certainly lead to the distortion of the meaning. So this is one of the important hindrances for promoting mutual intelligibility of spoken languages. Right, now when you look at languageness, and apart from this, there is another important aspect we need to remember. That is languageness. Every language has got its own quality. I would like to draw your attention to a video. Hello. Hope my video is audible and visible.
Yeah, you're quite audible and visible, sir. But you hadn't started your sharing your screen, no, sir?
Sir?
Please share your screen and you can play whatever you want, sir.
Right. Perfectly all right.
While sharing the screen, select that sound, enable the sound also. But we are not able
Sorry?
to, yeah, we are not able to hear the audio part. Video is okay, sir.
Right then, we will proceed further.
Yes, you need to enable at the there is a option at the beginning of the screen sharing. You need to select bottom two options.
Right. Actually, this is a video of a particular polyglot, and he speaks many languages. And what we can do is we can proceed further. And I'll just demonstrate. If you take up when we talk about languageness, if you take up Telugu, it has got its own quality. If you take up Malayalam, it has got its own quality, characterized by nasal articulation, retroflex articulation, and if you take up Telugu, you can see a lot of plosives across. Even you can see plosives very dominant across the inner languages, and so the speech is characterized of plosive. And we will come to that aspect a bit later. But what we need to understand is every language has got its own quality, and that is what I call, languageness. If you take up Arabic, they say, "Assalamu alaikum, kayf al-hal, shunu jo, alhamdulillahi, kayf sahadak, taiba." So gutturals are very, very dominant in that language. And when you take up English, "Hello, how are you? Are you fine? Hope you're doing good." That kind of native variety. And if you take up American English, it has got a lot of nasality and rhoticity. And if you take up Hindi, "Hello, bhaiya, kaisa hai?" It has got its own quality. And that is what I mean by languageness. Languageness is very, very important in promoting mutual intelligibility of a language. Certain times we make mistakes grammatically, but if you maintain the languageness, say for example, if you take up Telugu, we do make many mistakes in our day-to-day use of the Telugu language. What we don't compromise with, if somebody makes a grammatical mistake, that's taken. We exercise grammatical tolerance. But when it comes to pronunciation distortions, people try to mock and find fault with the pronunciation. So that way, when it comes to listening and speaking, what we need to understand is languageness is non-negotiable. Languageness is non-negotiable while teaching English. So why do we need to focus on languageness? If you do not focus on languageness, it is very difficult to understand the pronunciation. And, a language teacher is a speech pathologist. You should be able to understand languageness, the problems of pronunciation when the learners speak, right? And that way you have to identify the problems of the learners. We will come to that a bit later. But what we need to is languageness is also very important while teaching listening and speaking with reference to a particular language. So now let us move to phonetics. When we look at phonetics, for these reasons, to promote mutual intelligibility, we need to study phonetics, because languageness, that is where I want to introduce a very functional definition of phonetics. Right? So when you look at phonetics functionally, this is what we realize. Functionally, it deals with the languageness, where voice quality, voice modulation, certain important aspects of rhythm, and all these things contribute to languageness and the sounds of a language. So phonetics functionally deals with the languageness and the sounds of a language. Dear friends, why do we need to teach phonetics at all at this juncture? See, we don't teach phonetics as a technical subject to the students. So there is, you take any topic or concept, there'll be two versions. One, the learner's version. Two, the teacher's version. The teacher's version is called expert's version. And the learner's version is called user's version. So every time when we talk about phonetics, we need to remember these two different versions. One, expert's version, the phonetics for teachers. Two, the phonetics for learners, where we need not to talk about all the technicalities and technical terms. We have to teach certain aspects that are very, very crucial for mutual intelligibility in a very, very practical manner. We need not to get into the details or the nuances of that particular concept. So here, I'm attention to the experts version of phonetics. However, in tomorrow's, my tomorrow's session will reflect upon converting this experts version into the user's version or the learner's version. That is, that convergence is very, very crucial while we teach any concept, any technical concept. So dear friends, this is where, most of the times when people start teaching or learning phonetics, they don't realize these two versions. So whatever they learn as teachers, the technical version, they try to present the same technical version or academic version or too scientific to the students. Then the whole purpose of teaching that particular aspect gets defeated. So we need to understand here this important criteria or criterion in teaching languages. So today we are reflecting upon the expert's version or the teacher's version of phonetics. So otherwise, phonetics for teachers. I have mentioned two things: phonetics for teaching and learning. So teaching and learning. So we are looking at teachers' phonetics today. As a teacher, if you don't get your facts and figures, the ideas and insights very clear, it's very difficult to convert those scientific and technical concepts into practicalities in the classroom. So that's where I encourage you all to have an expert's understanding of phonetics. So why do we need phonetics at all? What are the tasks and targets for teachers? Of course, our tasks and targets are towards intelligibility of English, if you take up the English language education in Andhra Pradesh. So there are three important needs or tasks and targets when we look at the English language in terms of mutual intelligibility. While teaching listening and speaking, we need to identify the needs of the learners. What are the problems? What are the problems they have? What are the problems they have in terms of languageness and pronunciation? Some students may be using ra very, very overtly. Instead of saying burn, they may say burn, turn. So, as a teacher, unless and otherwise you have a thorough understanding of the teacher's version or the expert's version of phonetics, it is very difficult to identify such problems of the learners and design tasks. It's identifying needs is more or less like diagnosing the problems of the learners in terms of speaking and listening. And after understanding the learner's problems, you have to come up with tasks. AP teachers are, I had a very wonderful experience when they were developing know-how modules. They're quite skilled when they started thinking along those lines, along the lines of identifying needs, and immediately they could reflect upon the solutions for the problems of the learners. So how to design tasks? Day and night, they used to discuss and come up with nice tasks, effective tasks that really help the learners to come out of the pronunciation problems or the listening problems they face. And once you understand the needs of the learners, the problems of the learners, once you design the task to help the learners to come out of those problems, your training with regard to speaking and listening will take a very fruitful and productive path. So for this purpose, we need to understand the technical or the expert's version of phonetics. Dear friends, hope you understood the purpose behind having a very, very sound knowledge of phonetics from an expert's point of view. Right, let us move further. I think one more teacher is going to reflect upon certain important aspects, but this morning I would like to draw your attention on segmentals. When I say in the previous on the previous slide, the functional definition, languageness, where rhythm, intonation, and prominence, voice quality, these are very, very crucial, and it talks about languageness refers to those things, and the sounds of a language. When we talk about the sounds of a language, we are talking about segmentals. So we have suprasegmentals like pitch, stress, duration, and voice quality or quality. And on the other hand, we have the segmental issues with regard to the English language. Let us look at the speech apparatus, human speech apparatus. Dear friends, doing phonetics is nothing but mastering our speech apparatus. Our speech apparatus, that is why I always encourage my students, my research scholars, not to be afraid of phonetics. Phonetics is nothing but understanding the human speech apparatus and also using the speech apparatus effectively while learning different languages. So if you take up human speech apparatus, from lips to the glottis, From the lips to the glottis, if you can see the diagram, you have lips, two lips, and down there you have a circular, circle kind of, not circle, in oval shape. That is the glottis, where we see the vocal folds. So from the lips to the glottis, we call it the speech apparatus. This speech apparatus is similar and the same in structure and anatomy across the human languages. You may have thousands of languages in the human culture and societies. Thousands of languages with different qualities, different of language, or different aspects of languageness, different shades of languageness. But the speech apparatus is the same. It is something like this. If you take up a guitar, you may have smaller one and bigger one, but guitar is guitar across the cultures. So it is this human speech apparatus is similar and the same across the human languages. This is what we need to understand. We need not to worry about British variety or American variety or Spanish or Greek or Arabic, whatever it may be. It may be it a Romance language, be it a Semitic language, be it a Asian language. So whatever it may be, the speech apparatus is the same. The only thing is the small and the big speech organs. That is where it differs, but the same and similar speech apparatus. When we take up speech apparatus, human speech, there are 11 places of articulation across the human languages. Humans, in short, humans can use only the 11 places of articulation. There is no 12 place of articulation in the human history. So by research, the linguists and phoneticians and phonologists have arrived at these 11 places of articulation and say that these are the only 11 places of articulation humans use across human languages. And see, but there is no language, there is no single language that uses all the places of articulation, 11 places of articulation. So out of these 11 places of articulation, some use 6, some use 10, some use 8, but there is no single language in the world so far that uses all the 11 places of articulation. Dear friends, if you take up the English language, English speakers use 8 places of articulation. When you take up Arabs and the speakers of Semitic languages, they use 10 places of articulation. When we take up the Indian speakers of Indian languages, they use 9 places of articulation. So Indians use 9 places of articulation, Arabs use 10 places of articulation, English speakers use 8 places of articulation. So dear friends, this is what we need to understand here. When we are talking about languageness, these places of articulation are very, very important. If we take up guitar, there are frets at different fret, you produce different sound quality. So 11 places are there. At 11 places, 11 different sound qualities can be produced. That's why we need to be very, very careful of the places of articulation when we teach a particular language. So British guys use only 8 places of articulation, but we use 9 places of articulation. We are in a more advantageous position when it comes to speaking and listening. And Arabs are really in more advantageous condition. However, how they use and perceive are totally different. For example, we will come to those 11 places of articulation. Let us come to, these are the 11 places of see, for example, if you take up 11 places, look at the list of 11 places of articulation. We have bilabials, pa, ba, but labiodentals, when we pronounce pa and ba, we use both the lips. We call pa, ba, and ma bilabials. And we have labiodentals like fa, va. In detail, we will look at those phonemes tomorrow. But I'm drawing your attention on certain aspects of accurate pronunciation and the pronunciation with proper languageness. Right? So bilabials, labiodentals, bilabials, 2 lips, labiodentals, the lower lip and upper front teeth, and dentals, the tip of the tongue and tip of the tongue and teeth, upper front teeth, alveolars, and you see alveolar ridge. And the tip or blade of the tongue and alveolar ridge. And similarly, post-alveolars, the place behind the alveolar ridge is called post-alveolar. So retroflections, actually, Indian languages are very rich in retroflections. So, la, gana gana, nya, nya is a nasal, not a retroflex. So ta, da, na, na, la. These are retroflections, Indian language, which are dominant Indian languages, which are popular in Indian languages, if not dominant. So we have palatal region, where hard palate is involved, and velar region at the back of the tongue, and you have uvula. See, if you take up vela, uvula, I will demonstrate these 3 places by taking k. In Arabic, we have 3, not only in Arabic, in Semitic languages, you have 3 different kinds of k. One is ka, the other one is k, the other one is ka. So ka, 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 ka. 3 regions, at 3 different regions, 3 different sounds. Prime is ka, but it sounds different when you change the place of articulation. When you make it palatal, ka, sorry. When you take up ka, it is palatal. When you take up, it is vela. When you take up ka, it is uvula. So uvulas and pharyngeals, for example, if we take up Semitic ha. Ha is down there from glottis. But if you move slightly above, you will see the pharyngeal region. In the pharyngeal region, you will be able to produce ha. So, and glottals ha. So these are the 11 articulations human use across the human languages. Now, when it comes to the human speech apparatus in English, English has got 11 places of I will come to the 11 places of articulation once again, and then let us come to human speech apparatus. There is another important aspect called manner of articulation, which are very, very important. So you can produce some sound through nasal, you can produce the same sound through oral region, oral cavity, and orals, nasals, and all those things. Let us look at those manners of articulation. We have plosives, where you see a plosion kind of effect. You know, most of the Indian languages are rich in plosives. When you take up the English language, you know, plosives are just 6. But in Indian languages, we have nearly 20 plosives, 6 versus 20. So definitely plosives, and the frequency of plosives is very high in Indian languages. And then if the plosives are more, such languages sound like tapataka, chittapata, katapata, badagada, jeda, badagada, but you know, that is the effect when the languages which are rich with plosives are spoken. That is the effect. Nasals, you know, some languages are rich in nasals, and they you will see a lot of nasality in their speech, in their you know, with regard to that language. And trills, you know, there are some languages where some African languages use trills. So there are trills. Those trills are very, very dominant. And taps and flaps, similarly. Fricatives, English uses 9 fricatives. And then laterals, approximants. These are manners of articulation. We need to understand, when we have the expert's view of the manners of articulation and places of articulation, we will be able to understand the learner's problems in a very systematic manner. Where does my learner face the problem? Does he face the problem with a place of articulation or the manner of articulation? If my learner faces a particular problem with the manner of articulation, what kind of exercises I need to design and offer a kind of training? So this is what we need to understand. That is the reason why we need to do a bit of phonetics in an expert's way. Right now, let us come to English speech and places of articulation. English uses 8 places of articulation, as I mentioned, and these are the 8 places, the 8 places of articulation. And we can move forward. And then if you look at manners in English, we can see 6 manners of articulation. English has got plosives, English has got nasals, English has got taps, English has got fricatives, English has got laterals, English has got approximants. When you take up the classification of the sounds, in English we have 6 plosives. Nasals are just 3. There are 9 fricatives, 1 lateral, 2 affricates. Affricates are the combination of plosion and friction. That's why I haven't mentioned affrication or affricates here as a separate manner of articulation. So it's a combination of plosion and friction. So they have 2 affricates and 1 continuant, that is approximant. Continuant like r. Approximants, we can say there are 3 approximants in English. So that is how we can look at the English language. But when it comes to Telugu has got 20 plosives. In principle, we have 5 fricatives, but most of the times we could see only 3 fricatives. For example, if you take up, plosives, we have pa, pa, ba, ba, ta, ta, da, da, ta, ta, da, da, ka, ka, ga, ga. These are the plosives. And we have nearly 20, we have exactly 20 plosives. But when it comes to fricatives, sa, sh, ha, I think, we have sa, sa, sh, ha. I think we have, we have only 4 fricatives, but most of the times, sa and the sha, are, are in free variation. It means, we use one for the other. Still, we don't have any intelligibility issues. So practically and functionally, we have only 3 fricatives. In English, we have 6 fricatives. By this, we can understand nearly 66% extra of fricatives in English, right? So only 33% fricatives in Telugu, and you can see 66% of fricatives in English. That way, we can understand fricative character or quality is very dominant while people speak English, while native speakers speak English. But Indian languages are not rich in fricatives. So when they are very rich in plosives, so Indian languages are characterized by plosion. So plosion, you will see a plosive effect, as I mentioned earlier, katapata, chittapata, gadabada, gidabada. And when you take up fricatives, dear friends, that contributes a lot to languageness. Languageness matters a lot, as I always demonstrate in my presentations across India, and also participants of learners of English and researchers. I draw their attention on one important question. I present an expression in 2 different varieties. My brother from America. My brother is coming from America. When I ask the people to choose one out of their preference, they choose always, in Indian context, they choose the second one. My brother is coming from America. But when I ask them another question, if you have a child, if you want your child to speak English, which way? They immediately take U-turn and come to my brother from America. Why? The issue is languageness. My brother is coming from America, grammatically sound, but in terms of languageness, very, very poor. Languageness is the irreducible minimum while teaching, speaking, and listening and speaking. Languageness promotes intelligibility. Even though it is grammatically wrong, in terms of languageness, it is rich. That's why it is more optimal one. So here, let me tell you, while teaching, speaking, and learning and listening, languageness is the top priority. Right, that is, non-negotiable. Speech quality, languageness are non-negotiables, but when it comes to grammaticality, it is negotiable in speaking. We do make mistakes in our mother tongue, grammatical mistakes. Yet we exercise grammatical tolerance and we have no issues. We try to negotiate with grammatical mistakes. Of course, when you go for reading and writing, which is a systematic activity in terms of cognitive mechanisms, I think that's where we need to promote grammatical structure and its accuracy. Right now, I'll just browse quickly on these issues and right. So when it comes to trills, in English we don't have trills, but when we take up Telugu, we have, for example, if we take up r is an approximant or continuant in English, but in Telugu we have it as tap, ra, 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 river, and when you take up the word river, we pronounce it this way: river, re, that is tap, r, that is trill. We have two ras in English. They don't normally, they drop ra, or if it all ra retains, that is as a tap, an approximant. So they have approximant ra, but we have trill and cat ras. So difference, that is where we need to understand. Whenever we migrate to the English speaking, we carry these Telugu manners of articulation to the English language, and that affects the languageness of the English language, and that causes in turn unintelligibility. So right now let us come to the Telugu sounds, and when it comes to the manners of articulation, we have seen the difference. We have bilabials, we have labiodentals in Telugu, we have dentals, but when it comes to fricatives manners, we don't have fricative th and the, but English has got th and the. Th and the are plosives in Telugu language. Dear friends, what we need to understand here is this kind of expert's understanding needs to be paid attention while we try to teach the English language to the rural students of Andhra Pradesh. Not only that, even in the urban areas, most of the times, we see Telugu intervention while speaking the English language. Here, you may raise a question: sir, why should we speak like an American or British? Dear friends, if we are serious teachers of English or any language, if we are serious language teachers, we should have an expert's understanding. When you buy a car, you always look at it and you don't want to buy any defective car, vehicle. Why? You have a perfectionist view while you are paying. Our learners are paying us. They are paying us through their time and through their governments. And if you talk to the parents of the learners of English language in Andhra Pradesh, they need good English. They want their children to speak English in the sense, not the English which is defective, the English which is effective, which is intelligible, not only in the local regions, but also in the global regions. I always tell my always mention this to the teacher trainees at IFLO. The Indian English in the classroom, you and I are not needed. Indian English, see, of course, in terms of policy, our model is British variety for XY reasons. English offers clear speech. American variety has got a lot of problems with regard to nasality, rhoticity, tapping and flapping, and so many other. I have nearly 20 phonetic features that are hindrances hindrances to mutual intelligibility with reference to American English. But when it comes to British variety, for its historical reasons and geographically widespread, it is tested that British variety is the most intelligible variety. That's why I have written a research paper on apiciency. Apiciency is a tool for promoting mutual intelligibility. Apiciency is a copyrighted term. I have proposed this term, and apiciency is nothing but proficiency in RP is proved to be more intelligible in the global context. Let me tell you one important thing here. There are 3 domains where the Telugu learners of English need to use English. 1, in the Telugu states, they can use the English language. 2, in the national context, I call it regional context. Speaking English to geographical region is called the regional domain. So the learners have regional purposes behind learning English. That is 1. 2, when they go out of the states into the other parts of the country, they have to use the English language as a national variety. In Indian English, people call it Indian English, and but within India there are n number of or different varieties of English. If you go to Kashmir, the English spoken is different from the English spoken in Kerala, and similarly, the English spoken by Tamilians is different from the English spoken by Marathis. Right? So there are n number of varieties across India. So when we go out, when the learners go out of the state, they should speak the variety which can be intelligible in the national domain. So,
sorry, sir.
regional variety or regional purposes. So our learners have. Sorry.
If anything is left to show through the screen sharing, if it is not,
I'm concluding. I'm concluding. Yeah, I'm concluding.
For your full size image, you need to stop sharing. If you still want to show something.
Perfectly all right. Perfectly all right. Okay. So I thought I would draw their attention to some of the templates later. No problem. Okay. So that is what we need to understand when it comes to the purposes behind learning a language must be looked at according to the regional, national, and international purposes, right? So there are 3 levels of purpose: local or regional purpose, then national purpose, and then international purpose. Indian English nobody taught me Indian English. Always my teacher has the British English as the model. When she teaches me some English, still her model or his model is the British variety. When she produces some materials for the learning and teaching, still the teacher has the British variety as a reference model. And right, so when the teacher tries to test my proficiency or progress in proficiency, she has the British variety as a reference model. So everywhere British variety and British variety and British variety. But the outcome is some local variety. That's what I say all the time. When we talk about Indian English, it is a mysterious variety. Our teachers follow British variety and teaches English, some local variety. So it is something like this. You sow a mango seed and reap grapes. That is mysterious. That is the mystery in the entire story. Dear friends, what we need to understand here is to teach the national and regional varieties of English, the teachers are not needed. It is automatic. It is automatic. You teach some English, they will learn whatever they learn. They approximate it to their mother tongue. They mix and match with their mother tongue aspects and then come up with a local variety. But we need to teach them the global variety. Our students are in a context where they have to live locally, but communicate both locally and globally. When the local variety is automatic, how to achieve the global variety? That is where I always come up with a proposition that we need to focus on global variety, and which promotes mutual intelligibility. And I will present a principle here and stop my presentation and will be open for Q&A. So dear friends, while teaching, I always propose a principle. For speaking, have the British variety as a model. So train yourself in British variety, because the British variety is the most intelligible variety across the globe. Second, of course, yes, are with local variety already. So they will have two varieties. When they speak to Indians, they approximate their accent to local variety. When British, they will approximate their accent to global variety, since they are trained in global variety. If they are not trained in global variety all the time, locally or globally, they use the same variety. That invites the intelligibility problems. So the principle here is, when you are training yourself in terms of pronunciation, production, follow the British variety. When you try to listen, when it comes to listening, get exposed to n number of variety, because whenever you go to a country, there is a local variety. So how to develop, develop a repertoire or cognitive abilities to approximate your listening to the local varieties of English. So this is the principle. For production, British variety. For perception, it is. That way, our learners will be more skillful and definitely be successful across the globe while they use the English language. Dear friends, I welcome you all with your questions, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. And over to Ismail Garu and Srinivas Garu.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for the presentation. We have a few questions. Let me ask first question, sir.
Tomorrow,
yes, sir.
Sorry for the interruption. Tomorrow,
Yes,
I'll come up with my Phonetics 2 lecture. where we will look at the problems of the learners. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Uh, the first question is why he is a party from Chinnagadilla, Vishakhapatnam. How can I teach phonetics to primary students as
Yes,
teachers may
as I
not be that
mentioned,
much? Yeah.
very good question, sir. Very relevant. And this is where I was mentioning about the convergence of experts' version of phonetics and the learner's version of phonetics. And you need not to talk about plosives, which is a technical term to the learners. You need not to talk about languageness, which is a technical term. You need not to talk about intonation, but you can always demonstrate through we can always demonstrate the English language and languageness through our speech, or help them get exposed to the British variety of languageness, so that they can get acquainted with the variety. And doing phonetics is not doing the analysis speech in a more technical terms. No, from the learner's point of view. For the teacher's point of view, you need to reflect upon those technicalities. From the learner's point of view, what matters is what do you make them hear, what do you make them produce. That matters a lot. Without, it is something like this. Most of the times we try to mention this. We have to teach grammar inductively. We need not to teach grammar technically or deductively. You need not to talk about all the technical involved in grammar, but you present the functional aspects of grammar. That's where we talk about functional grammar or communicative grammar, things like that. Similarly, somewhere we have to take up phonetics and make it functional and communicative. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. With the continuation of that question, I have another question. Venkateswara S. Vijay. Remembering these phonetic sounds are very difficult. How can we work on this problem to keep in practice?
See, I don't think it is a problematic one, because Telugu has around 50 plus letters, but English has got 44 phonemes. The quantum is very, in terms of quantity, Telugu, English has less number of phonemes, right? It is only, most of the times, phonetics, English is presented to be presented as a devil to the learners of English right from the childhood, and that is to the learners. But for the teachers, phonetics is presented as a devil.
Thank you.
So we have to overcome, or we have to conquer these two devils. Children should conquer the devil of English as a language, and the teacher should conquer or overcome the devil of phonetics. It is as simple as any other subject, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
And tomorrow I'm going to present certain sounds and how to deal with them in the classroom and things like that.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Isman, am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please ask.
Sir, a teacher from the Giddaluru asked that, how does the sounds of mother tongue influence learning sounds of English? Whether they promote or inhibit learning English? It was his question, sir.
Well, see, actually, from behaviorist point of view, there are two schools, behaviorist school and cognitivist school. Some people believe that language is a behavior kind. Some people believe that language is a psychological reality, cognitive ability. So what we need to understand here is pronunciation is
more of behavior. It's a behavior pattern. So, when we take up Telugu learners, they have certain problems. They have, I don't say they have problems. Their mother tongue has got certain features of languageness. We have to identify them. And while they try to learn the English language, we have to disassociate those mother tongue languageness issues with the other tongue languageness issues. That should be technically and systematically planned, in our teaching plans and in our teaching schedules, right? And certainly, for example, we are rich in plosives, and when we talk about plosives, English fricatives, the and the are plosivized, are made plosives in Telugu because we don't have fricative the. So we replace them with the tha and the. So that adjustment, if it is blocked and systematically plan the activities, we can help the learners. There are beautiful speakers of English whose mother tongue is Telugu. They approximate their English to the local variety and global variety by observing these features in a very functional manner. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Another question what they asked that, how does stress differ from intonation?
Well, I think, some other people, Dr. Purnima is going to talk about stress, intonation, and rhythm. I prefer not talk about those things in this session.
Yeah.
I think we have to wait for Purnima's webinar.
Oh, thank you very much, sir.
One more question, Ismail.
Yes,
what principle should we use to tune us from local variety of English to global variety? She is from Nagalakshmi Garu from West Godavari.
Sorry, can you repeat the question once again?
What principle should we use to tune us from local variety of English to global variety of English?
See, the principle is just this: use the global variety while listening.
Yeah.
And listening is an input of languageness. And if languageness enters, and certainly the languageness comes out. So use the most intelligible varieties of English samples while listening. That is the principle.
Right. Thank you very much, sir.
thank you very much, sir, for your nice presentation. Really, we have so many, but time is running out. So, on behalf of the Andhra Pradesh teachers, and my own behalf, we submit our gratitude to you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your great presentation, sir.
One more announcement,
Namaste.
Ismail.
Yes,
one more.
Please go ahead, sir.
So,
Yes.
So in the Abhyas app today, the material is not available, but tomorrow there will be material of both today's session and tomorrow's session well, and assessments be. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and then sir. Namaste.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We'll meet tomorrow.